Welcome all. So today I have started on a new series of building a multilingual website, and the first part will be about how to build the multilingual website. I mean a language website that can be actually interpreted in several languages like English, French, Spanish or any other language by QueryStringRequest Culture Provider. So later on we'll see in an upcoming videos about the other request culture provider. There are 3 request culture providers, and please go through this video from start to finish in order to understand the basics and grasp the basics. And I will be giving you a functional website at the end of this lecture, so where you will see a language select list where you can select one out of several languages, and it will give you the culture name and the date and some currency and numbers in the local language. So what is a globalization? We'll need to study globalization and localization. Now you will learn in this tutorial to create a multilingual website, and that supports 3 different cultures and language. So let's preview what will you learn. So you will learn the configuration required to prepare multilingual website using localization and globalization features of ASP.NET Core, and I will be using ASP.NET Core 5. And how to create a multilingual website that supports 3 different cultures and languages. I can extend it to 4 languages or any number of languages. So this globalization is a process of designing sites that support different cultures. Globalization adds support for input, display, and output of a defined set of language scripts that relate to specific geographic areas. Localization is the process of adopting a globalized site after the process of globalization, and which you have already processed for localizability to a particular culture or locale. And internationalization involves the support for both globalization and localization. Now, first of all, let's switch over to Visual Studio 2019 and do it hands-on. Now, here is the finished lecture, finished application, which is in the running mode. After the end of this lecture, you'll be able to build this one. And if you click on this language select list, and by default it is showing the English of United States with the culture, UI culture, and US, English US, and the date in the United States culture, and currency dollar and the number. Now if you click on to French, it will give you the French culture. Okay, so this is the date and this is the currency. Wherever actually, however, the currency is French franc and or euro rather than euro, or similarly for Spanish it should be also euro. But here the only problem with ASP.NET 5, which I have found with experimentation, and I have just raised a bug about this, that in this currency symbol is not showing all right other than the US culture, and even the Russian culture is showing rubles with a different common symbol for euro or ruble. So which seems to be a bug, and I have raised the bug. And this bug, if you are you can note it down if you are interested in tracking down currency localization not working for most of the currencies. Now this is the ASP.NET Core repository by Microsoft, and I have raised this issue. Okay, so I have described the bug and I have shown how to reproduce, and I have given all the technical details with the hope that someone will come and attend this issue. All right. Now let's stop this application and switch over to Visual Studio and start building it from the scratch. Okay. Now I have opened Visual Studio 2019 and I will create a new project. And by default it is selected on ASP.NET Core Web Application, and then I clicked on next, and I will put it in my desired location, which is here already set up, and I will give it a name. So let's say multi multilingual website demo. So just let's see the spellings, spell check, it's all right, and click on create. And I'll be using this default, which is highlighted, ASP.NET Core Web API, Web App Model View Controller with ASP.NET Core 5.0 is the platform, and I may or may not configure for HTTPS. It is not required. I don't need any authentication, and all other checkboxes, both the checkboxes remain unchecked. And click on create. It's going to create the project for me. I'll come back when the project is created again. Now the starting point to globalization of a website is being able to determine the language or culture for each request made by the client browser, as we have seen in the demo. And after that, a mechanism is required to select the content based on the client's culture. And we'll study all about that mechanism, and you will get to know about each of them as you follow along in the coding. Now, first of all, I'll have to inherit some necessary namespaces, which I have copied on my clipboard, and I will put it in the startup class. So I'll put it below the last using statement. So these are system.globalization and Microsoft.ASP.core.localization and Microsoft.extension.options. Now inside then this configure services method. So in this configure services method, I have put a code which was on my clipboard, and this is I am using, just save it first, the services object I am using to configure with the request localization options. Okay, so it specifies options. If you could read on the mouse over, it specifies options for the request localization middleware. Okay, and I am creating an field, a variable supported cultures, which is an array of 4. Here actually I am using 4 different languages, not 3. So English US for NUS, French FR, Spanish ES, and Russian. So this is the new culture info class I am initializing, and I am creating a new array and giving it a name of supported cultures. And then I am using option.defaultRequestCulture, which is actually initializing a new request culture object with the culture being English US and UI culture being the same. And then I am assigning the supported culture, this supported cultures, to the supported culture property and supported UI cultures property of this options object. Okay. The next thing that needs to be done here is to call in a middleware, which is application services dot get service method. I am passing this request localization options middleware. Okay, and then using this location options variable that I've created to be as a parameter for the use request localization. And this is the extension method. Right. Now note that here I am using English of US as the default culture. However, I can set it as English of Great Britain by setting ENGB, or English of South Africa EN-ZA, so that default culture gets changed. Now the current culture request, which is made by the client browser, is set in the localization middleware, and this middleware is enabled in the configure method, which I have already done in this configure method. Now, this localization middleware must be configured before any middleware which might check the request culture, for example, app.use MVC with default root. Now, the localization middleware makes use of the component called request culture provider. Okay, so to determine the culture of the current request made by the client. So as I have told in the beginning, there are three request cultures which are QueryStringRequestCultureProvider, Cookie Request Culture Provider, and Accept Language Header Request Culture Provider. And I will be demonstrating only the QueryString Request Culture Provider here. Alright, so next is we'll have to set some code in the view. Now, just clicking the views and then home and then index.cshtml, this is the index view. Now I will replace the code with the clipboard code that I have had, and you can see here that I've kept the first two lines the same, view data title home page, and this part is also the same by default, which comes up with the index view when you create the website via the model view controller template. And I am just using a set of using statements and then injecting this I options of request localization option, location options. Now let me get to the explanation of the other parts. Now this I options, this interface will retrieve the request localization options from the startup class. So this was our startup class. So this is having the request localization options class it is using. So by injecting this way I options, this will get the request localization options from the startup class, and after that I retrieve the requested culture by using the code context.features.get. Okay, then I fill the supported cultures in a list. Okay, supported culture in a list, that is in the cultures item variable. That is this culture items location dot values dot supported cultures dot select, C goes to new select item. So item, this select list will have the name and the display name as a list. Now next is a form, this form, which I create with ID as culture form, and inside this form a select control, this select on change, select control which is a drop down list, is bind with culture items variable. So this is bind with culture items variable. The drop down will show all my supported cultures, which are English US, France and Spanish, as well as the Russian. Okay, and this on change event of the select control, you can just focus on this, where I call a JavaScript method. Now this is a set culture method which comes from here. This is a set culture method. Okay, this part. Now what this does, in the JS code, what I do is I add the selected value of the select control to the forms action. Okay, I specifically pass this value in query string. So this is all query string keys called culture and UI culture. These are query string keys, right? And that's how I'm using the query string request culture provider. Since I am using query string to tell the server what culture I am using, therefore query string request culture provider will come into action in this part. Okay, so this is all JavaScript. Next I create an HTML table. Okay, this is the table then that displays various bits of data. So you can see at request culture.culture.name, requestculture.uiculture.name and then date time and then currency in this format. Okay, and then this application is ready to be run. So now the application has come up. So this is the English. This is what we have started with. I've shown you in the beginning how the application is look like. And then if you click on French, this is the French culture. And then this is the Spanish culture, date, currency and number in Spanish culture, and then finally the Russian culture. The only problem is that in the currency format is not showing correctly, where I have raised the bug as I have told you in the beginning. Only the $sign is alright. So finally, let's see what is the query string culture provider. Now this is actually a query string form. Question mark culture equals English US and culture equals UI culture equals English US. Now if you change this, the query string will automatically change, right? Query string will automatically change. So that's all for the day. Thank you very much.